Welcome back to Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, guys. This episode is going to be just a few extra things I wanted to do before beating the game. It's a shorter video than most of the episodes in this Let's Play, but just kind of wrapping things up before heading for that final boss gauntlet. And we're returning to the arena where you fight the Duke's Dear Freya. A little optional content here where you can enter into the memory of the dragon. Not a whole lot going on in the dragon memories compared to, let's say, the giant's memories, but, kind of interesting lore-wise nonetheless. It's just something I wanted to briefly show before finishing the game, and it ended up being like a good bit of content. I was able to kind of cut down a good bit because a lot of it just seemed kind of like filler. And I'm hoping that watching this will be, a little more interesting than just kind of run around everywhere. Now, I'm not totally sure what's going on here, whether this dragon appears to be turned to stone, or maybe it's a dragon in its original state, according to, if you look back to the Dark Souls 1 lore about the ancient dragons being, neither alive or dead. They're just kind of like just matter, basically. I don't know how to really explain it. We've got an ancient dragon soul, and I show the description to that and leave it on the screen for a few minutes, or not a few minutes, but long enough to where you can read it. In editing this video, the picture's a little bit too small for me to be able to make out what it says, so I just kind of let you pause it on that. And then that's really all there is to do. Get the ancient dragon soul, and then I'm speeding up this part where I used a bonfire ascetic to fight the boss again, because if you fight the Duke's Dear Freya, even though it's not one of the four lords, it's holding on to the soul called the, something like the old Pale Drake soul or something like that. Basically a heavy allusion to Sotfs. This boss reminds me so much of, I think it's called the Armored Spider from Demon Souls, except it has two heads, and it's, in concept, it's a bit different of a boss fight than that one is. This fight took, I don't know why, it just seemed like it took forever for some reason. So I sped it up a good bit, keeping a torch lit just to keep all the spiders away. Running from one side to the next, trying to deal some damage, trying to keep from being damaged. These bosses, when you... There's a moth coming after me in here, quick. When you use a bonfire ascetic and fight a boss again, they deal so much more damage. It's almost silly. But finish up the boss fight and get that soul. That's the soul that allows you to make the Moonlight Greatsword, which I'll show that off too. It's kind of funny. I decided to finish the boss fight by punching the spider in the face with a pyromancy flame. Does almost no damage, but I just thought it would be funny. So there's the old Pale Drake soul. Again, hinted at being, belong. That sounds exactly like Sotfs, the Scaleless. Whether it is or not, it's up to speculation, but I think it is. And what's interesting about getting the ancient dragon soul, you get it from the dragon's memory. But when you fight the boss, the ancient dragon, you get a giant soul instead, which tells me that the ancient dragon that you fight at the dragon shrine is not a true ancient dragon. I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, it was believed within the community for a while that the ancient dragon was actually Aldia, but with the release of the DLCs, that kind of debunked that theory. So I'm not exactly sure who or what the ancient dragon you fight is, originally was. So we know of Aldia and Vendrick, who are brothers. I don't know of anybody else it could be. So then, to get another of the Great Lord Souls, used a bonfire ascetic and respawn the Lost Sinner, who will give you the Old Witch's soul. She has ties to the Witch of Izalith, it would seem, or at least carries her soul with her. Now the Lost Sinner, on increased bonfire intensity, it's whenever you use a bonfire ascetic on a bonfire, it increases the difficulty of the enemies and everything. It's like if you went to New Game Plus, basically. So Lost Sinner's not too terrible by herself, but when you get her down to almost halfway, or half of her health, a couple of pyromancers will spawn in, and then it's like it's a 3-on-1, and I just wasn't able to manage it. So you're going to see me here in a bit, like I'm going to attempt it a couple times, and then eventually I have to summon an NPC. So Lucatil, believe it or not, you can still summon her, even though she went hollowed, over the course of the game. So you're going to see my second attempt here, sped up, of course. I left the other one at normal speed so that you could see kind of what was going on with the summons, or not the summons, the NPC invaders or whatever. And I figured I would just include my second attempt, even though it does take 3 attempts for me to get it. And Sinner's Rise, on increased bonfire intensities, is just a much more annoying area than it was originally. There's more enemies. There's some Red Phantom enemies, the bandaged hollows that will run at you and like explode and ruin all your equipment. Yeah, there are Red Phantom versions of those in that area, so that's fun. So Lucatil, kind of just using her as a distraction, I was able to beat the boss. Finish her off with a cast of Forbidden Sun, even though I don't think it did much damage to her, just because, I don't know, I think it's cool to do that. Just hurling that humongous fireball across the whole arena. And just kind of giving a shrug there, like, yeah, well, had to summon an NPC, oh well. I couldn't do a 1v3, had to do a 2v3. The NPCs are very weak themselves as far as their HP. They will run from you and kite you, and they'll do nothing but cast pyromancy. So that was kind of annoying, but with Lucatil distracting the Lost Sinner while I dealt with them, they died in like two hits each, I want to say, with the Silver Black Spear. So we got that one. And then I realized, actually in the last video, that I did not do any of Benhart's quest the whole game. Like, you use the Fragrant Branch of Yore on, what's her name? Rosalind or whatever. The pyromancy chick. And then, I guess I never came back and talked to him after that. But he'll move from that spot to different places, and you can summon him for different boss fights. So, what I ended up having to do was talk to him here, get his dialogue, and after that, I had to summon him for some boss fights by using bonfire ascetics to, respawn the boss to where I could actually summon him. Because I think you have to do, I want to say it's 3 boss fights. Yeah, you have to summon him for 3 different boss fights and win with him alive in order to get his equipment. He'll give it to you. And that is not the Moonlight Greatsword he has. He thinks it's a legendary magical sword, but it ends up being a counterfeit. You get that information from Madrold and the Iron Keep if you talk to him.
I swear it.
we get started on Benhart's quest. He moves from there to Drangleic Castle.
Well, friend. Good to see you well. Yes, very good indeed. I journeyed from the distant east to perfect my swordsmanship. And legend has it that powerful beings slumber in this land. This sword has been in my family for generations, and only a real man can wield it true. I may face any man or beast.
Yeah, it's all about that sword of his.
For my sword.
Benhart's personality reminds me a lot of Sigmire,
This land is
except
about
Benhart
death.
seems to be actually competent
It's gone. The people of
as a
Ireland
explorer and a
had
warrior.
eyes.
Like, you're never really having to get him out of a bind or anything.
Terrible
You just
beasts.
run into him from in different places.
No better place to test my sword, eh?
But he just kind of has that same temperament.
This land is
So
right.
I always thought that was interesting about him.
Well,
So moving on from Castle Drangleic,
what are you doing here?
you meet back up with him in Forest of the Fallen Giants
Meet in a place like this.
after the Pursuer
Fate
boss
just won't
arena.
let us stay apart, will she? See, the old sword's caught your attention. Well, you've a good eye then. That has been in my family for generations. They say it is crafted with moonlight, and we all know what that means. It wards off evil. And I wouldn't trade her for all the riches in the world. It's said that no man has ever teased out the sword's true power. But in the right hands.
Maybe I missed something in Benhart's dialogue, but I never really,
See, you've taken a liking to
you know,
the
now that I
sword.
think about it, I don't know what his
applaud
goal
you.
is ultimately
You sharp eye,
with what he's doing,
but this is one sword, pal.
which I guess is kind of sort of similar to Sigmire of Katarina
If you
as
still
well
insist on having it,
in Dark Souls 1. He
then you will have
doesn't
to
have,
bend
or at
for
least
my
doesn't appear
gold
to have
horns.
much of a goal in mind as he wanders around. You know, he never talks about really linking the fire or anything. He's just kind
I'll
of
never forget
pops
it.
up here and there just to explore and
I, Ben
see what's what. Benhart's kind of
my honor
seems that way as
to aid
well.
you
Maybe he
in
just
your
wanted to
darkest
wander
hours,
around
so
to
no problem.
show off his sword to whoever he could show it to
Have a
and
great
talk
day
about
too,
it with.
Pipe.
He's a pretty cool guy. And then going back into this giant's memories, I think this is where you talk to Benhart. Yeah, here we go. And at this point, I'd only fought 2 bosses.
I see you're
Benhart. I
traveling
saved the
there,
3rd
are you?
one for the Giant
Just
Lord, which
remember,
you can summon
I'm
Benhart
always
for. And
ready
I
to help.
remembered before I entered into that fight,
My whole
I
land
looked
is in the
around and was
Far
kind of like,
East, a
I
kind
feel
of
like
honourable
that I should be able to
family,
summon Benhart here.
and
I
this sword
had remembered
makes
being
the
able to
true
do
man to
that.
wield it.
Then I just kind of shrugged it off
I
and went
know
on. And then
your
when I
sort of
saw
style,
that
you see.
he hadn't made it to this giant's memory,
My homeland is
I
in
was
the
like,
far,
whoa,
and this I know.
like where did I leave him at? But turns out I left him at the place where he starts out. But once you've talked to him and gotten him to that area, you can go back into the other giant's memory. And I had to use a bonfire ascetic to respawn the giant lord as well. And that's where you can summon him from. As I was editing my last video, like I noticed that I subconsciously like zoomed in on that point, like I was somehow like in the back of my head, I was expecting his summon sign to be in that spot down those steps, and it wasn't there. So something kind of funny happens here. I was just kind of, I was kind of tired and sleep deprived at the time of recording this. And without thinking, I just kind of ran ahead and wasn't looking in front of me. The statue's head had fallen and it just rolled right over me. It can happen. So, jump back in, gonna speed this up. Nothing else really to see. It's taking Benhart to the Giant Lord and hacking away at the Giant Lord's ankles. Not a whole lot different from the first time I did it, other than he's a little bit tankier on a higher difficulty, but no big deal. And there it is. That is 3 bosses defeated with Benhart. The other boss I summoned him for was the Congregation boss, whatever it's called. It's the boss of the Seldora campsite, where you're in like the chapel, and it's got like the Hexer wizard guy and the other like undeads shooting miracles and stuff at you.
A good many times. Oh, my dear friend, take these.
So as much as he talks up his sword and how he'd never part with it all through the game, he just gives it to you. And yet somehow he's still holding it, so maybe he has a copy. I don't know, maybe he has a bunch of them. But that's the Blue Moon Greatsword, not to be confused with the Moonlight Greatsword. I've never used either one of them personally, but if I were ever to like respec into like a pure intelligence build, I would definitely rock the Moonlight Greatsword. Just, because why not? It is the magic sword. So that's Benhart's quest. And the last little thing I thought, would be interesting, like, I just realized, like, what's some notable items I haven't gotten this playthrough, which there's plenty of stuff that I missed. I mean, a lot. There's a lot of weapons and armor and knickknacks all through Dark Souls 2, but a big thing that I missed was coming back to the gutter. I want to call it Black Gulch, but this is the gutter, with the Forgotten Key. And behind this door right here, with all the poison statues, which I just absolutely hate how many they... Like, I understand a few, but man, whoever designed these areas really... Look at that. You think that's enough? They went overboard with this. They're like, I'm going to put all of the poison statues in this room, like all of them. Oh, it's so annoying. I just finally start swinging my club around, and in that pot that I just broke is none other than Havel's equipment, of all things. Like, I don't know why it's just there randomly. I don't know if there's a lore reason behind that. I kind of have a feeling there's not. But there's Havel's set, if you want it. I figured, it's interesting enough to get, so I bring up the description of his great shield as well as his armor, and it's got a weird description about, it hints that, it belonged to some warrior in the past, and then it goes off onto some other tangent, like it could have been, something way different. So I don't know. It's weird and interesting how Dark Souls 2's lore like does its own thing, and yet at the same time it really does set up Dark Souls 3 pretty well. But that's it for this video. Next time we're going to beat the game. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you soon with more Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, and until then, y'all take care.